Can you say something about Thomas Tallis and William Byrd and what they
Oh,
mean to you? Who they? Oh, yeah,
oh,
those
right.
two composers.
Yeah, well, they're um, the two most important English composers of the 16th century. And Tallis was a mentor of Byrd, godfather to his child, Thomas. They were both at the Chapel Royal in England, and Tallis wrote a lot of wonderful music, and Byrd wrote a lot of wonderful music. We just celebrated the 400th anniversary of Byrd's death on July 4th last year. Um, and so they really were huge in the history of English music. Yeah, that's Byrd, and an 18th century engraving. We don't know what Byrd looks like, but that tends to get used because there is nothing else. Um, and Really wonderful, a wonderful polyphony and gorgeous harmonies and cross relations. There's Tallis. Yeah.
um, what made you choose to work on on English musicians and composers? What was the draw for you?
Right. Well, you mentioned Shakespeare's Songbook, and that was
Yes, yes.
my first sort of really big um, work in English music. I have it. Oh, you probably could pull it up on
Yeah,
Amazon,
I'm
but
pulling it up now. Yeah.
there it is. There.
Yeah.
Um, so I grew up 40 miles from the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Ontario, Canada, and my mother was an avid Shakespeare fan, and she used to take my sister and me to everything that they put on in those years. So I think I had probably seen every play by Shakespeare by the time I was about 17.
Wow.
Um, and I was always curious about the music that was used. And as I began as an undergraduate interested in early music, I thought, well, why aren't they ever using any early music in Shakespeare's plays? And ironically, when I was in college, another student there, he was doing a master's while I was an undergraduate, was Berthold Collier, who was the music director at Stratford Festival for decades. And the music that they used was his music because there was so little or none of the music that survives from Shakespeare's play day for the plays that every Shakespeare company needed to have a composer as a music director because they needed to be able to generate these pieces of music that were needed, whether they were song settings or incidental music. Um, so I started to think about that, and then in the early '90s, um, I saw a reference, a line from a play that said, "What's the news, Rogero?" This is from Winter's Tale. "What's the news, Rogero?" And I thought that's really funny because Rogero is the name of a ballad tune, and why would Shakespeare use that as a name? He doesn't use it anywhere else. And then I discovered that there was a ballad to the tune of Rogero that had a plot that kind of paralleled the Winter's Tale. I thought that
Oh,
is really amazing. There's kind of a layer of meaning there that Shakespeare's audience would have got that we don't get because we don't know that repertoire.
right.
And so that started me on that path to find all these songs that Shakespeare was just alluding to in that way or quoting sometimes a line from a ballad. There's a place in Twelfth Night where Sir Toby sings, "Oh, the 12th day of December." Well, it's just a line in the play. And a lot of people didn't realize it's actually a line from a song. It's the beginning of a very, very long song about a battle. And Toby has that line at the point where he's already been making a lot of noise, and Mariah comes out, tells him to be quiet. And after she tells him to be quiet, he sings, "Well, the 12th day of December." Well, everybody in the audience would have known um, that he's beginning a very, very long battle song, and he's not going to be quiet. And so it was that meaning that was lost to modern audiences, and so that's what I was trying to uncover. In the process of that, um, I realized that some of these Shakespeare songs um, had rhyming words and keywords that were the same as some of this popular song repertoire. And from that, I concluded that Shakespeare was actually not writing his song lyrics to be set by a composer. He was writing them to songs that he already knew, and that the musical settings of the songs um, were already there, were among the popular song repertory. And so I was able to set all of Shakespeare's set songs, about 3 dozen set songs that are in the first folio in italic type and labeled the song and so on, to popular music from the time. So that, and that has led me to do other plays. I
Wait
have
a
a
sec. Well, let me jump in, Professor Duffin. So, I mean, this is one of the most studied authors celebrated in history. Were there? I mean, what you did was pretty significant. I mean, they were really deep, getting more meaning out of a really celebrated canon of literature.
yeah,
Did any Shakespeare scholars reach out to you and say, "Oh my goodness, this is huge"? I can't.
yeah.
That's a
Oh,
big that's a big thing.
yeah, it's been very gratifying. I know that, for example, at RADA, the Royal Academy of Drama, um, training for actors in the UK. I mean, it's the place, one of the places to go. That they basically use it every day. As a kind of a discipline to take a song and sing from it. Um, so I know that it has had an impact. But the thing was that I also knew that what I was doing was really unusual, that no one had ever done anything like this before. And so after I had spent a period of fellowship at the Folger Library, I decided, well, I should really see if there's going to be any interest in this. And I decided I would approach W. Norton, because they were the biggest music publisher and Shakespeare publisher in the world. And I wrote, and I didn't hear anything back. I mean, I don't think that they accept sort of unsolicited stuff, and they didn't know who I was. And so I thought, okay, well, that's fine. I'll write the book, I'll draft the book, and then try again. And so I did. And about 2, 3 years later, I wrote again. I still didn't hear anything. So I contacted Barbara Mowat, who is head of the Folger Institute, and who I got to know at the Folger Library. And I said, I know you know the editor at Norton. Could you write and say that I'm not a kook? And and the next day, that day, I had an invitation to send the book manuscript. So I did. And then when it arrived and they looked at it, I was told afterwards that the music editor, the Shakespeare editor, and the poetry editor were dancing around the editorial office, because they realized immediately that after 400 years, there was something new to be said about
That
music.
is huge. I mean, that is incredible. Wow.
So
Wow.
I've continued to do that. I have published a book in 2018 on songs in English comedy, and I've done work on Shakespeare's sonnets, which for the most part do not survive with early musical
Mm.
settings, and then more recently poems of John Donne and Philip Sidney. So yeah, I mean, I feel very attached to poetry from that era, and particularly lyric poetry that was intended to be sung or could be sung. And I've developed my own databases and so on. So, but sometimes it's not even necessary. I remember going to hear talk about John Marston, a playwright, and the scholar was putting up one poem after another, and I was thinking to myself, well, I know what tune that one was sung to. I know what tune that one was sung to. So yes, I've got databases, but I've also now got a lot of experience with lyrics, and have a good idea of what music could have been used, and probably was used for some of these things.